Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining today's presentation. I'm going to let everyone join from the waiting room here before I announce today's presentation, the topic, and the presenter. Let a few more people trickle in here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So today we have Wade Arnold with US Bulletproofing, and today's topic is protecting people and property, fortifying building safety with ballistic blast, storm impact, and forced entry solutions here. So, a few things about today's presentation before we get going into it. First one, this is AIA approved, so you'll be receiving one learning credit after attending today's presentation. If you were unable to register with your AIA number when signing up for today's course, I will drop that link in the chat. That'll be the first link I drop. So make sure you fill that out with your AIA registration number to ensure you receive credit. Second thing, we will be launching a webinar poll about 3/4 of the way through the presentation. This is a really great way to connect with USBP for any of your project needs, or if you're just exploring new products. So look out for that. And then the final thing here, I want to share my screen. I'm going to take over real quick. And this is where to find US bulletproofing on Acelab here. So you'll see Wade Arnold's contact information here. You can click on it and then select a project or for general research and get some more information there. Now, a little more importantly here, you can see their lovely products. So if I click on this one right here, it'll take me over to their product page. There's some really, really great information here. You can download CAD and BIM files, find out some more spec details, save it to a project or your firm library. And then this, which I know is really important for a lot of you, is the performance data. You can download it right here. That will be the second link I drop in the chat. And then the final one that I will drop in the chat is a way to request either virtual or office presentations with USBP. So if you click on this, you would just fill out this form with your company name and then what type of meeting you're interested in, and I will coordinate that. So without further ado, that is everything on my end. So Wade, you can go ahead and kick it off with today's presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. And good afternoon or good morning to everybody, depending on where you are in the country. As she mentioned, my name is Wade Arnold with a company called Specialty Fenestration Group that is comprised of two different companies and brands, one being US Bulletproofing and the other Quick Serve. Now, today what we are going to be focusing on are essentially how to secure your buildings with storefronts, curtain walls, windows, doors, and openings. Because 10 times out of 10, glass has always been seen as the weak point in the wall system. And if I ask everybody today, I want you to get in your criminal mindset. I truly want you thinking like a criminal, so you design with security in mind, all right? But yes, be thinking like a criminal about how you would essentially enter these spaces, how you would occupy these buildings, how you would break in to these spaces that need to essentially be secure at all times, or in some cases as well, temporarily as well. So again, there's going to be a lot of information that's shared today, and I certainly encourage you at the very end, if you would like to ask questions, put them in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand, ask me, or contact me afterwards. Be happy to help you answer a lot of these for some of the design considerations for many of your buildings, because with both brands there, these companies, I get to tell everybody essentially when it comes to security, we do everything from drive-through windows to Department of State around the world. So if you have driven by our products, I can guarantee you have on some of the quick serve side with some of the drive-through windows in the QSR space, and I can venture to bet that you have stood behind some of our windows and entered some of our doors, depending on which building you may be going into. But since you are all in your criminal mindset, and I would encourage you as well, when you look at this image, all right, I'm sure many of you recognize it. This is the Washington Monument located right there in the heart of Washington, D.C. This is just the entry vestibule to a national monument. But just by looking at all the glass and the metal there for this entry vestibule, could anybody tell me if it is ballistic rated, bomb blast, storm impact, or forced entry rated by any means whatsoever? Essentially, is it rated with security features? And the answer is no, you cannot. It was a trick question. No, you won't be able to, because there's no label or sticker on it saying this is ballistic rated. Good luck getting in. But I can tell you just because I know the product in the image there, is that this particular entry vestibule, all the glass, all the metal is rated for ballistic protection to the highest level. All right. It is also bomb blast rated just because it's within a certain vicinity of certain buildings. If you look due north of this building, there's the White House. If you look to the far west, there's the Lincoln Memorial. And at the opposite end of the National Mall is the actual Congress building itself. So, but again, just by looking at it, no, you are not going to be able to tell me. And like I've been saying, is that when you start thinking like a criminal designing with security in mind, it doesn't matter if it's the interior or the exterior of your building. You can put as much perimeter fencing around your building. You can put all the security guards, you can put all the access control, you can put all of the security cameras, all right? If you are not truly hardening the physical envelope of your building, you are running the risk of people occupying the secure side of these windows and doors or entering the safe spaces beyond the openings, the windows, and the doors. Now, the smart criminals are certainly going to check to see if the doors are unlocked, but like I said earlier, 10 times out of 10, if they were trying to break into a building, they are always going to be shooting or hitting or trying to enter those occupied spaces through the windows and the doors, i.e. the glass. All right. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is, again, essentially the materials, some of the testing standards around security threats, materials, and solutions to help protect against all of these different types of threats, no matter if they're exterior of the building or if they are inside or in the interior aspect of the building as well. And I'm not going to bore you to death with any crime statistics, but I just always point out to everybody, whenever you watch the news, what are the first three things always on the news? One, it's drunk driving accidents. It is mass shootings or any type of gun violence that happened to be in the city or whatsoever. And the winning lottery numbers we didn't win. Quite frankly, the news is just depressing to watch anymore, all right? But every single day, there's gun violence. You look at the billions of dollars of damages that are just done from storm impact scenarios, whether those be hurricanes, tornadic conditions, hailstorms, just environmental factors around the world. And I tell everybody that for every one normal person, there are 10 crazy ones to go right along with it, especially if we're all driving home in rush hour traffic at the end of the day. But you look at the constant rioting, looting, the crazy individuals out there that are just purely just trying to inflict terror or damage or not hurt anybody by any means whatsoever. But these crazy individuals do exist out there. And so I always encourage you, just again, think like a criminal. So you design with security in mind. But as we transition into the four different key security categories that we're going to be discussing today, the first one that always pops up on everybody's radar that is usually guiding a lot of the design criteria for your buildings is ballistic protection. And I encourage all of you, since you're probably sitting by your computers, visit our website or just go to your favorite search engine and type in UL752. Now, if you're not familiar with UL752, that's okay. I'm going to show you the chart, give you the Cliff Notes version, but I encourage you to click images in looking for this chart and save it. Save it on our website, save it wherever you would like, because you will utilize this for one of your projects at some point when you're designing around with ballistic protection. This is about for 99% of the construction projects out there with regard to ballistic protection. The other 1% we'll talk about here in a little while as well. But to give you the brief overview of the UL752 standards, Cliff Notes version, levels 1 through 3 primarily focus on small caliber handguns, 9 millimeters, 357s, 44 magnums. 4 through 10, and I highly doubt you'll ever get into 9 or 10 because those are typically designated for war zones around the world. But 4 through 10 focus on your higher caliber rounds, your single shot rifles, and some of your single semi-automatic weapons. All right. Please don't think that the shotgun rating is the most protective down there. If anything, it usually falls around the levels 4, 5, and 6 up there. But for that matter, this is the ballistic rated standard for a majority of your commercial projects out there. All right. Now, there are a couple of loopholes and issues that I do want to point out about UL 752. And right now, the industry is actually in transition of moving from the 11th edition to the 12th edition of UL 752. Nothing is changing on the types of weapons that are utilized. Essentially what they're doing, they're changing some groupings, some pairings, and some of the velocity of some of the bullets or the projectiles that are sent from these weapons to the surface of whatever material that they are hitting. Now, this is not just pertaining to glass. It's pertaining to full windows, doors, and in some cases, other exterior envelope materials as well, right? But here's the first issue that I have with UL 752. This is a very, very, very old standard. So when they tell you this is a real world test, and if you could see me right now, I'm putting air quotes around the term real world, they will tell you that this is a real world scenario test. And unfortunately, it's not. Keep in mind, all of this is done within a controlled environment. Which brings me to my second point. In this controlled environment, they mandate that you mark off 15 feet between the distance and the surface of the material and the end of the barrel. The reason they move you back 15 feet away from whatever you're shooting at and testing the materials is that allows the projectile to achieve its maximum velocity to exert the maximum amount of force on the surface of whatever it's been shot at as well. All right. So if your clients ever ask you, is there any testing between 0 to 15 feet? Unfortunately, the answer is no. All right. So again, that's why they move you back 15 feet, but 10 times out of 10, where do the criminals typically get? They get right up next to the glass. They're already shooting at the windows before they even get up to them, but they get right up next to the glass when they're trying to break through some of these windows and doors. Now, the final issue that I have with UL 752, if there is one level you should never, ever, ever utilize or specify, please let it be level 6. And this is the reason why. Common sense is going to teach you that level 6 is more protective than 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? You would think it's higher in the chart, it's more protective. Unfortunately, it's not. And if you look closely enough there, level 6 is essentially the same protection as level 1 because it's a 9mm caliber. I know it says Uzi submachine gun. They designate this as a rifle round purely because the barrel's a little longer on the Uzi submachine gun than it is a 9mm. But if you look to the far right, right, they test this for a certain number of shots. As you can see there, levels 1 through 3, 3 times, 4 and 5, once, 6, 7, and 8, 5 times. The idea here around ballistic protection is that you are buying time. If you've heard, I haven't said the term bulletproof, all right? That is a misnomer. It's a marketing term, all right? No system out there is truly bulletproof because given enough shots, given enough time, eventually one of these projectiles may pass through to the other side. That's why we use the term ballistic rated instead of bulletproof, all right? So please make sure that when you are designing buildings, use the term ballistic rated instead of bulletproof, all right? Because a lot of people think that they will be able to stand there after 10 shots, 20 shots, and still be protected in some cases as well. But the primary source here, primary idea here is that UL 752 is the ballistic rated standard for about 99% of your construction projects out there around the world. Now, people are going to say and ask you, what level do you recommend? You never, ever want to answer that question. Instead, answer their question with a question by saying, what are you trying to protect against? If you're trying to protect against high-powered rifles, well, then we're not going to recommend levels 1, 2, or 3, or 6 in that matter, because we're never specifying level 6, all right? Ask them, what are you trying to protect against? Because that will dictate the level of protection, the type of glass, whether the metal is reinforced or not. It will determine all different types of solutions for you based on what your threats actually are. Now, I'm sure many of y'all have probably driven by some of these facilities or seen some of these types of windows out there. And believe it or not, there are a lot of drive-through windows out there where you go pick up at a Burger King or a McDonald's or a Wendy's, Taco Bell, whatever your favorite fast food restaurant is. And they're ballistic rated because there are points of sales there. They're entry access points that are usually pretty low security. You just have an attendant there, somebody taking an order, all right? But if you remember years ago, and this is a primary scenario, a few years ago, Popeyes threw down the gauntlet with Chick-fil-A and said, we have the best chicken sandwich in the industry. And Chick-fil-A said, hold on, what are you guys doing here? That's not true. People were breaking into Popeyes just to grab a chicken sandwich. Not rob the place, not steal anything else, just grab a chicken sandwich to truly determine if it was a better chicken sandwich than Chick-fil-A. Great marketing ploy, all right? But people were breaking through these windows and doors just to grab food in some cases as well. You even look at utility stations. When people get their water bills or their electricity, or sorry, they get their water or their electricity turned off because they're not paying their bills, people show back up to these utility stations to pay by check or cash, demanding that they turn the necessary items they need to survive on in their homes or their buildings of some sort. You look at government facilities, police stations, first responders, education. We're going to talk a little bit more about education facilities as well. But I want you to all right now take a look at that image right now on this screen in the storefront and the door and that opening right now. All right. if you were to guess what level of ballistic protection that actually is, what would you guess? Right? Some people have said, or what type of building do you think that is? I've heard some people say it's a mixed-use development, it's a retail facility, it's a financial institution. I've had somebody tell me it was a dentist's office before. I've had people tell me it's in Miami because they can see the palm trees and the reflection as well. But the point being is that just by looking at it, you one can't even tell me if it's ballistic rated, and if it is, you can't tell me what level it is because it all starts with your specifications and your design details. All right, I want you all to remember that image right there because I'm going to show it to you a little bit later on. You'll be amazed at where that building actually is and what that building is serving its function and purpose for as well. But I can tell you that door and those windows are ballistic rated to level 8, the highest domestic security protection level out there in the industry right now as well. Again, 9 and 10 typically designated for overseas, Department of State. So again, just keep that image in mind because I want to show it to you a little bit later on. The other 1% of the projects that I was discussing out a little bit earlier as well versus UL 752 is the National Institute of Justice, the NIJ standard, all right? As you can see here on this chart, there are some similarities and synergies to UL 752. You can see 357 handguns, 9 millimeters, 44 magnums, 7.62 and 308 rifle rounds. This is typically designated for federal entities, Department of Energy, Department of Justice, Department of Defense, Department of State. They have their own governing standard for ballistic protection, all right? Again, some similarities to UL 752. If you do run up against the NIJ standard, there are products and solutions out there that have both tests completed that can run in conjunction with each other as well. So just know if you do work with some of the federal government, every now and then you will see the NIJ standard, but for the majority of the time, when it comes to ballistic solutions, you will utilize the UL 752 charts. So with that being said, I'm going to move on from ballistic protection to the other security categories that we're going to be talking about as well. But I highly encourage if you have questions on ballistic protection, please enter in the chat. I'll be sure to answer those at the very end as well, or reach out to me after the presentation. So when people start thinking about bomb blast protection or these different types of threats, people are always thinking about international terroristic acts overseas, but that's not always the case because yes, these can be intentional acts of terrorism where people are using explosive devices. I'm sure many of us remember the Oklahoma City bombing. That was an intentional act of terrorism here just done in the US. But if you remember a few years ago, there was a small town in Texas called West. It's actually located in the center of Texas because Texans were geographically challenged. But for that matter, it was called West Texas. And there was a small fertilizer plant there that actually overnight a fire broke out at this fertilizer plant. And a fire door did not activate and shut, and two chemicals mixed together ignited ammonium nitrate, a massive explosion throughout this small city. Now, across the street, unfortunately, at this facility was an elementary school. Down the street was a middle school. And people would think, why would you build schools next to a refinery that could potentially explode? Well, it's a small town. People need to drop their kids off, get to work. Everybody in the town worked at that factory as well. But for that matter, thank goodness this happened in the middle of the night because from that explosion, every single window and door on those schools were blown inwards into the building. You know, it was behind the elementary school, and you can look at the overlay on the map on the explosion blast radius of this unfortunate event, and you can just Google West Texas fertilizer plant explosion. Behind the school was a nursing home and an ER triage center. Windows and doors were blown inwards onto that hospital and that nursing home as well. So again, we never know when or where these different types of threats are truly going to be coming from, but there are a lot of testing criteria that come around bomb blast protection. But within all of those testing criteria, not testing criteria, some of the different governing agencies and their criteria, there are two things that remain true and synonymous throughout all testing criteria and specification requirements for blast protection. And I'm explaining those here in detail as well. But there are some things that you want to consider around blast protection. One, where on the building are these they are most prone to attack from any type of explosion as well. Yes, you can absolutely determine your protective measure by standoff distance or some of the fencing requirements or elevated surfaces or landscape barriers as well. You'll look at certain types of installation methods. You would prefer to utilize a prefabricated system versus something that is just stick built out there in the actual industry as well. One of the other false assumptions is window film. And we'll talk a little bit more, a little bit later on about window film as well. But please, please do not fall for the marketing scheme that window film, surface applied window film, is ballistic rated and blast rated. It is not. They cannot provide the testing criteria that shows that window film is, but it will be marketed to you that it is. If anything, surface applied window film just acts as a large iPhone screen protector basically as well, all right? But like I said, two things required throughout all specifications with blast requirements. If these two things are not in your specifications and you just put out a generic project manual with blank information, it will get kicked back to you because manufacturers for windows and doors, and there are multiple out there, determine these types of systems, the type of glass, the type of metal, the anchoring points as well, based off these two requirements. And that is one, the standoff distance, and two, what we call the peak pressure or the impulse, the maximum amount of force that could very well be exerted onto the surface of these buildings. Now, please don't think that the chart that you're looking at here is much like the UL 752 chart for ballistic protection. These are not levels of blast protection. What these are performance conditions of the buildings that you are anticipating potential explosions on the surface of these buildings, right? And a lot of times, yes, people will think, I want performance condition 1. I want the most protective. I want something so structurally sound and rigid that it's going to deter every single explosion out there, the largest explosion out there in the world. That is a very, very, very bad idea. Most of the time, people are typically designing building construction or building envelopes with 2, 3A, or in some cases, 3B as well. And the idea that I give everybody here is essentially when you're looking at these performance conditions, what happens when you make something too structurally sound or we over-engineer something? A lot of people will say, well, it's very expensive. It's cost at what comes into play there. And that's a factor of it. But why do we build bridges to move and flex? Because they sway. If anything, I remind everybody that your buildings are living, breathing organisms. They move, they shift, they expand, they contract, they settle in their foundation, they get shaken at some point, all right? There's a lot of energy that's transferred in and around these buildings. So if anything, look in when you're utilizing performance conditions for blast protection with 2, 3A, or in some cases, 3B. Never, ever ask for performance condition 1, right? Because you run the risk of catastrophic failure or structural collapse if you over-engineer something or make it too structurally sound at that point as well. So when you look at this graphic and this image here, you obviously see the standoff distance. And I know this is a very extreme one here, and I'm about to show you some videos of what potentially can happen with blast explosions on the surface of buildings. But you see there's the overpressure right there. That's essentially what you call the peak pressure, because that is anticipated the massive amount of force that is exerted onto the surface of these buildings. But again, requirements in your specifications: 1, standoff distance, and 2, what the peak pressure is that is required, because that will dictate the design around these windows and these doors protecting your buildings. Because in some cases, some of these buildings still need to be operational, functional, and secure. Now, the two images that you're looking at right here are actually videos, and I'm going to play these slow motion videos because essentially what they are, right here is about 10 pounds of TNT that is going to be detonated on the surface of these buildings and explode. The first one is going to show you the shock wave that runs up the buildings and how the curtain wall systems and some of these single punch windows absorb the impact, and no glass or metal can penetrate through to the other side of these buildings. The second video over here is going to be a difference between positive pressure and negative pressure, and I'll explain that here in a second to you. So as you can see there, the device is exploded. And that's the shock wave that hits the surface of those buildings. Now, the second video here, you will see positive and negative pressure. Positive pressure is the initial shock wave that hits the surface of these buildings. There it is. Negative pressure, and if you wait for it, there's the negative pressure right there. I did not hit rewind on the video. Negative pressure is just as dangerous as positive pressure because it can very well pull windows and doors right off the surface of these buildings as well. So again, just some design considerations to start thinking about when you look at the different types of blast rated structures on some of the surface of these buildings, because right now, just by, and I know this shows one of the embassies for Department of State, but if one of these vehicles exploded on the outside of this building or a explosive device will happen to detonate, do you think that the perimeter fencing, these security cameras, these security guards, these elevated surfaces are truly going to stop that explosion from hitting the surface of these buildings? No. The windows and doors are what truly protect these buildings from any shockwave or any debris or anything like that being thrown at the building. Windows and doors are what protect it actually as well. All right. So again, start thinking like a criminal, so you design with security in mind, because yes, there are some federal entities out there that have some design options here where they will use barricaded devices, landscaping devices, elevated surfaces just to keep vehicles from getting up close to the surface of these buildings, but that still does not stop people from creating acts of terrorism out there as well. And a prime example of this is, I'm sure many of y'all may recognize this skyline here. This is downtown Nashville, Tennessee. And if it was the Batman building right there that gave it away, who remembers what happened there on Christmas Day in 2020, the middle of COVID? Christmas Day. If anybody can remember, there was a crazy individual in a mobile home with a loudspeaker that was riding around on the loudspeaker yelling, "Explosion about to occur. Get away, get away." This crazy individual decided to detonate that vehicle just a couple of blocks away from Broadway Avenue in Nashville, which we know is one of the busiest streets in America, 24/7, 365. And thank goodness this crazy individual did this on Christmas Day in the middle of COVID, because everybody was home with their families, obviously social distancing, but waking up in the morning to spend Christmas Day with your loved ones while crazy individuals are out there in a mobile home with explosive devices driving around. But yes, I'm sure the leaves were probably already missing off the trees because it was the middle of December in Tennessee. But what do you notice about every single window and door on these buildings? They have all been blown inwards into the building. I'm not saying you have to go build every single building out of blast rated material, but like I said, we never know when or where these different types of threats are truly going to be coming from. Now, speaking of threats that you might actually be able to see and predict, one, for storm impact. Yes, we can certainly see when hurricanes are barreling towards the coastline because we obviously have satellites in the skies. But when it comes to tornadic conditions or hailstorms or any type of other environmental factors, you can have all the early detection devices you want as well. But that is not truly going to stop these situations where tornadoes or hail or debris are constantly blowing around. Storm impact solutions exist to help protect against these different types of environmental factors. Windows and doors are some of the most prone areas on these buildings to be blown inwards or cracked or fractured or become hazardous material thrown into these occupied spaces as well. Right now, FEMA 361 and ICC 500 are two of the most prominent standards when it comes to storm impact. Yes, you do have Miami-Dade, Florida Building Code, Texas Department of Insurance, all these different types of storm impact requirements out there. But FEMA 361 and ICC 500 are typically designated for tornado shelters and safe rooms for some of the storm impact requirements. I know that they can be accepted on the coastal regions as well, but these are essentially applicable to high-risk zone areas. Now, earlier I talked a little bit more about window film as well being marketed to you as ballistic and blast rated. It is not, and it is also not rated to stop storm impact requirements as well. I will say a few good things about window film here in a little while, but I want everybody to know that surface applied window film will not stop any of these different types of threats. So please make sure when you're specifying or you're designing, your clients are requiring that they just want surface applied window film, that they understand the risk factors that won't be mitigated if you utilize surface applied window film. So truly, I do believe at some point FEMA may supersede Miami-Dade and Florida Building Code and Texas Department of Insurance, purely because some of the FEMA requirements for FEMA 361 and ICC 500, they are testing to a higher wind speed, all right? Now, some of their design pressures also come into play as well when you start specifying and looking at the different types of protection that you're going to need based on where your projects are, right? Because essentially when I say based off where they are, these two maps that you're looking at right now are what are designated by FEMA as high risk or low risk areas. And I do find a little bit of this comical sometimes because, yes, I see on the tornado side there all the red. People will say, well, that's Tornado Alley. To be honest, if anything, it's no longer Tornado Alley. It's tornado half the country. It really is. They have had F4 and F5 tornadoes touch down in Texas. They've had F4 tornadoes touch down just north of Philadelphia a few years ago as well. You look at Alabama and Georgia that are constantly plagued and hit with tornadoes as well. But these are essentially what FEMA are dictating based off wind speeds and some of the design pressures as the most high risk areas. And then even for the hurricane coastal regions as well, I would like to think that that red would extend all the way down there to Brownsville, Texas, and the tip of Texas, all the way up to Rhode Island, because we saw what happened years ago when Hurricane Sandy tore up the eastern seaboard and reached all the way up there to Connecticut and Long Island and Rhode Island as well, tearing up the eastern seaboard. So, again, when you start looking at storm impact scenarios, please ensure that you are specifying and designing with the right system. There are only a few manufacturers out there that truly make FEMA rated and ICC rated windows and doors. They also, in conjunction, have ballistic rated solutions that also offer storm impact requirements because yes, there are some educational facilities, government facilities, police stations that require ballistic protection more so than they do FEMA storm impact requirements, but they still need to ensure that they can protect against both. It's the same material, the same glass makeups, the same metal, which we'll talk about here in a little while as well. But I just want everybody to understand that you can get a window and a door that help protect your buildings against multiple different types of threats. You can even get windows and doors that will protect you against all four of these key security categories if that's truly what your building is designed for and needs. And again, that's typically will be designated for federal entities or government buildings, but think about when or where you're going to need security because when we start even talking about forced entry rated solutions here as well, there are multiple different forced entry rated standards out there. ASTM F1233, 588, 3038, Department of State, low level versus high level. There are a lot of different factors when it comes to forced entry rated solutions and that go into your specifications. But there are three things that are synonymous with every single forced entry rated standard. All right, and they're the same across all of them, but they differ a little bit based off some of the requirements. To give you an example, F1233, that very well could be, they could give you a ticket window or a door that they say is ballistic and forced entry rated. You have one individual that has 5 minutes to break through it with a hammer, other small types of tools to attack it with as well, and by the method how they attack it, all right? Versus a Department of State standard where they give 6 very large individuals, different heights, different builds, different ethnicities, to attack a window with sharp objects, blunt objects, axes, crowbars, incendiary devices, in some cases chemical attacks, and they give them 15 minutes, all right, to break through to the other side. These windows and doors must maintain their structural integrity before anything penetrates through to the other side. So the three things that are common throughout all forced entry rated standards is 1, the number of attackers, 2, the types of tools that are utilized to attack, and then 3, the time or the duration of how long they are allowed to attack or try to break through to the other side, right? So again, thinking about when or where you're going to need security, whether it's ballistic protection, bomb blast, storm impact, or forced entry, that is essentially what is going to dictate your specifications, your design criteria, and the types of materials that are going to be utilized on the physical envelope of your building as well. So think like a criminal, so you design with security in mind. And now that we've talked about all the different types of security threats, just by looking at this image right here, could you tell me if it's even security rated by any means whatsoever? Excuse me. And the answer is no, you cannot. But I can tell you that this particular building right here, years ago, this is just a transit building where people go to check in for work every day to drive public transportation, whether it's buses, whether it's any type of it's essentially a transit building that employees utilize. There's no large amounts of cash here. There's no data, there's no assets or what we call HVT or a high value target that's kept within this building. Local gangs were driving by shooting out the windows for target practice. That's it. So if anything, what they did here is they took all the storefront and the windows and the doors and the openings and they created a level 5 ballistic rated solution. So what you're looking at there is a custom painted metal frame with level 5 ballistic rated glass that is insulated, thermally broken, and has solar control in the inner layers of the actual glass makeup. That way, it still achieves all the functionality, all the aesthetics, and performs every single day, but also offers the security to all the witnesses of these employees or anybody that's on the secure side of these windows and doors as well. So again, think like a criminal, so you design with security in mind. But transitioning from the security threats that we were talking about, now we're going to move into more of the materials and how ballistic rated glazing actually works. It works very similar to your ABS or your anti-lock brake system, because if I were to shoot a projectile at a single pane of glass, yes, it's meeting another surface and a force, all right? And it's slowing down, but it's not slowing down significantly enough to come to a complete stop. Yes, if you were to shoot maybe a BB gun at a quarter-inch pane of glass, it's probably going to stop. But 9 millimeters, especially high-powered rifles on quarter-inch glass or 1-inch IGUs or half-inch laminated glass, pierces right through to the other side. That's why we want to utilize additional layers and a laminated system to help protect against all of these different types of threats. Because essentially, when you slam on your brakes when you're driving in a rainstorm or a snowstorm or at a high rate of speed, and you slam on your brakes, you feel that jolting motion kick in. All right. I know in some cases it feels like we're speeding up or losing control. What that's doing, it's actually dissipating your forward motion, your energy dissipation. Same concept applies to security glazing, because that's going to hit the bullet's going to hit the first layer and slow down. Second layer, slow down even more. Third layer, come to a complete stop at that point as well. There are two different types of security glazing. There are acrylic products, or essentially plastic products, and glass products, multiple makeups of each. All right. The first one that you're looking at right here is what we call a full polycast or a full monolithic sheet of acrylic. Offers you low levels of forced entry, offers you low levels of ballistic protection, but it's not blast rated, it's not storm impact rated, and other types of high powered weaponry can certainly pierce right through to the other side. One of the main factors, though, that we utilize glass for exterior surfaces versus interior applications in some cases is purely because of building longevity. We do not utilize acrylic or polycarbonate solutions on exterior windows because at the end of the day, it's a plastic. It'll melt in high temperature situations, it'll delaminate, it scratches, it'll yellow, crack, craze. It's essentially, I don't want to necessarily say an inferior product to glass products, but it does make for inviting appeal. And I'll show you some examples here in a little while for interior applications as well. All right. Whether you utilize a 3-ply or a 4-ply for low level ballistic protection, or in some cases forced entry protection, you can utilize acrylic and polycarbonate solutions for interior applications. But please, please, I err on the side of caution for individuals that want to specify or utilize this on exterior surfaces. Please, please do not do that, because the reason we utilize glass for windows and doors all around the world is because glass is a resilient building product, very durable, long life cycle as well. You don't see skyscrapers that have full curtain wall systems making the glass portion of that with acrylic or polycarbonate. It's glass for a reason. All right. A lot of pros and cons utilizing glass versus acrylic or polycarbonate solutions. But when you start looking at the all glass protection, this is where you can get your highest levels of ballistic protection. This is where you can get forced entry protection. And in some cases, yes, bomb blast as well. But when you need all 4 of the security threats to be protected, you're protecting your building, you will utilize what's called a glass clad polycarbonate. It is a makeup and mixture of glass layers, polyurethane layers, and then you'll have your polycarbonate layers intertwined in there as well. These thicknesses of security glazing can range anywhere between 3/4 of an inch thick all the way up to 2.5 inches, or in some cases almost 3 inches thick as well, because you can get insulated ballistic and blast rated glass clad polycarbonate solutions as well, right? RF shielding and IR defense. Yes, in some cases, people are not using bullets or bombs, or they're not tornadoes hitting buildings every single day. Sometimes people are trying to steal information or listen in to C-suites or CEOs' offices or conference rooms. You can incorporate radio frequency and infrared detection devices and help protect against those as well. Essentially, that's done with the inner layers of the actual glass makeup. But you think about it, yes, sometimes these data centers or CEOs' offices, they're just trying to keep people from listening in or stealing data from those facilities, right? Because people can do that beyond the perimeter fencing. People can do that just by pulling up next to a building and pointing a certain device at a window or door, and they're able to listen through to the other side. So there are solutions that you can incorporate into your windows and doors to help protect against those as well. Now, moving beyond glass, because I want everybody thinking of this as a full system, not just the glazing, but utilizing windows and doors because they incorporate a lot of other materials into them as well. One of the main reasons windows and doors are built out of aluminum for exterior applications is because of building longevity, much like glass as well. Steel obviously oxidizes when it interacts with moisture and will rust and corrode over time. Wood, you don't put those types of situations on exterior buildings as well because they'll decompose, they'll rot when it starts to interact with the environment outside. But these products can also be incorporated for ballistic and blast protection as well, even from an interior standpoint as well. You can get some beautiful ballistic rated steel doors or even wood doors on the insides of your buildings and utilize aluminum solutions on the exterior. You can get custom painted aluminum solutions that have the wood grain appeal if you're trying to maintain a wood grain finish for exterior windows and doors. It's done pretty frequently out there as well. So you're kind of combining all these different materials to start providing an entire solution for the windows and doors. But the main reason aluminum is utilized outside of being lightweight or popular in the industry is purely to the fact that it's non-corrosive, it's lightweight, it's easy to work with, and just the overall durability and longevity for the life cycle of the building. But how do we protect the framing as well? Because yes, 10 times out of 10, people are going to be shooting at the glass to try to penetrate through to the other side. Next place they might start shooting would potentially be the framing or the metallic members. So you can do one of two things. One, either utilize a thicker gauge of aluminum or insert steel into the actual frames to offer an additional layer of protection. Because I can tell you, the standard storefront doors that you walk in and out of every single day, hollow metal, yes, they very well could have a ballistic protection for level 1 and people from forcing in some cases if the doors or the windows are locked. But if you were to shoot those with a 44 Magnum or higher power rifles, they will penetrate through to the other side. So therefore, you can insert steel into the actual frames to offer the additional layers of protection. That way the full system gets protected as well. Even beyond ballistics or bomb blast or tornadoes or hurricanes or just crazy riders and individuals, the main threat that hits buildings every single day is sunlight, environmental factors. You can get thermally broken and incorporate thermal performance into these windows and doors to ensure that you protect against the main threat that hits buildings every single day. It's hitting your buildings and your windows and your doors right now because the sun is up, all right? Even when the sun goes down, it will help protect against all of these different types of environmental factors out there. And like I said earlier, you can get ballistic bomb blast and storm impact rated glass that has an IGU or a space incorporated in to offer additional thermal resistance. You can get inner layers that incorporate solar control or kind of a opaque looking glass if it's for spandrel or you're trying to essentially mitigate any type of R values or U values that are transferring into your building. So you have the ability to have a high performance storefront and curtain wall system with a 2.5-inch faceplate that looks and operates like any other standard storefront run-of-the-mill curtain wall system out there and still incorporate security into the actual windows and doors of your buildings as well. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on hardware. I just want everybody to know that there are standard packages for hardware when it comes to some of the doors and openings as well. These are obviously hung on continuous hinge systems because they can get very heavy as far as per leaf of the actual door. They're 2 3/4 inches thick on some of the door systems, but for the most part, I want everybody to understand that you can customize the hardware. You can customize the appearance of these doors. You're not tied to what's necessarily in a brochure or on a magazine by any means whatsoever, because I understand every building owner wants one set of keys, wants one key to every door, whether it's inside or outside, but that's not always the case. The janitor typically has all the keys to the building as well and knows exactly where they go. You have access control points. You have certain people that have access to certain areas of the building versus other versus public egress, ingress, where they're allowed to go within the building as well. Just understand that when it comes to hardware, you have the ability to custom create, custom design, and incorporate that not only into your specifications, but your design details in these products as well. Now, when it comes to spec writing, I always, again, err on the side of caution. With spec writing, please, please do not spec copy and paste for security rated products, all right? If you are specifying any type of security rated product, whether it's doors, windows, doors, for any type of the threats that we've just talked about, if you just spec copy and paste, because I know how easy it is to go to a platform, grab a product, drag it, drop it into your project, automatically generates a project manual, and you've now created your set of specifications to go out there for bid. But if for ballistic protection, if you do not select a level, for bomb blast, if you do not put the standoff distance or the peak pressure, for tornadic conditions, if you do not incorporate the right design pressure or the right zone for where your building actually is, and for forced entry, if you do not select the right type of forced entry requirement, you run the risk of leaving a loophole in your project as well that could very well be low bid, could very well not get the solution that you're looking for. Or when it goes out to bid, guess what? Bid date's going to be delayed because we don't have the right ballistic level selection. We don't have the right standoff distance that was designed for this actual building. You'll be writing change orders before the project even begins. So when it comes to specification writing, I know it's a lost art form. Please, please do not spec copy and paste. You're more than welcome to contact myself or some of our other representatives out in the field. But please, for security products, do not spec copy and paste, because essentially what you've done at the end of the day, you've now created this full security systems. And yes, I know much of these doors and windows, they're just flat surfaces. There's nothing sexy about them by any means whatsoever. If anything, they just need to be operational, functional, and secure, and perform against all the environmental factors out there as well. But just by looking even at these double pairs of doors right here for a police station there in New Jersey, or the state police in New Jersey, these are level 5 ballistic rated storefront windows, doors, and even the interior doors as well, just in case somebody happens to walk into that building with a weapon as well. But just by looking at them, they look like standard storefront windows and doors out there, style and rail doors, right? Even from an interior aspect as well. This security vestibule, an educational facility, level 3 ballistic rated transaction window, and the doors in the storefront over there, because not all active shooters and gunmen or crazy individuals are going to stop at the front desk and say, hey, here's my ID. I'm checking in. I'm walking to the building. This is my weapon. No, they're going to start shooting at the windows. They're going to try to gain access from a different vantage point versus going through the actual security vestibule. And think about it. Do you think active shooters are actually going to look at when they're in the parking lot or pulling up to these buildings and it says, please make sure you check in at front desk or follow these arrows to the front door? No, they're not going to follow the signs to make sure, I better go check in at the security desk, even though I'm here to inflict all sorts of terror or damage on this actual educational facility. And there are many states out there that, yes, unfortunately have experienced a mass shooting within their actual states or their local communities by any means whatsoever by some of these crazy individuals. But there are solutions out there that help protect against all of these different types of threats, because when it comes to educational facilities, unfortunately, they are always targeted for random acts of violence, active shooters, or in some cases, crazy parents. You think about just restraining orders or civil court cases or divorces. You can't just walk in and pick up your kid at school anymore. Now you're pulling up to the curb. They're coming out to you. You can't just walk into the school and drop off something. If kids have left something in your car and you have to turn around and go back to it, the days of you walking and embarrassing your child are over. There are security protocol around educational facilities that keep people from just walking in to these actual buildings. But unfortunately, right now, if you wanted to into a school, it's very, very easy to get into one, right? But as we roll through the majority of the rest of this, I just want everybody to see that this project gallery and the case study that you can see here are just the levels of security, the design creativity, because when you start looking at some of these buildings, whether it's a Phillips Arena, whether it's an educational facility, you see the level of custom creativity. You see that these windows and these doors are performing, but you cannot tell if they are security rated. Now, I'm not saying please walk up to the next drive-through window at a Popeyes or a Chick-fil-A and knock on it and say, "Hey, is this ballistic rated? Is this security rated?" But start thinking like a criminal. So you design with security in mind, because even when you look at the ability of what you can achieve for the windows and the doors and the helping protect the overall learning environment, the working spaces, protecting data, protecting cash, protecting people, protecting property. You have solutions out there that exist that allow you the design creativity and the flexibility that you're looking for, but also incorporating security, whether it is for drive-through windows all the way to Department of State around the world as well. Now, even just by looking at this one, I know this Facebook Guard Shack here is at the corporate headquarters of Facebook. I'm not saying Facebook and Google are going to go at each other for world domination tomorrow, but if you just looked at it yesterday, Amazon announced that they're going to have thousands of layoffs. Thousands of layoffs, people losing their jobs. Sometimes deranged individuals show back up to work to grab, things that they might have left, or sometimes they're carrying a weapon because they got laid off and they're disgruntled and they're angry. Sometimes even guard shacks. This is a level 5 ballistic rated solution right here with windows and doors to protect all of the guards that are within that building, because they never know when or where these different types of threats are truly going to be coming from as well. Even when you look at the Spring Hill Police Department as well, this is the headquarters for the state of Tennessee for all of their law enforcement. All right. And essentially, they are disseminating a lot of information, delegating a lot of responsibilities all across the state, done from this state headquarters facility here. But certain sides of these buildings incorporate not only storm impact and ballistic solutions, but also blast rated solutions as well. Because if someone is able to drive a vehicle up next to that building, these windows and doors must maintain their structural integrity, even if there is a massive explosion. You look at all the anti-Semitism going on around the world right now, and just the constant plaguing of religious warfare, unfortunately, in these places of worship and communal areas that what are typically attached to churches or religious facilities, daycare centers or educational facilities as well. Again, people would think they want to feel safe in a place of worship, and just crazy individuals that will walk in there with weapons or rioters or looters. Look what happened in Minneapolis last week as well, just people occupying some of these religious facilities. We never know when or where these different threats are truly going to be coming from. But the solutions to help protect against all of these different types of threats do exist out there, and they exist out there for the main reason of protecting people and property. And with that, I'm going to wrap up the presentation here. I'm going to continue to scroll through some of these images, but I would like to open it up again back to our great moderator here for any questions that popped up in the chat. I know there was a poll that was taken as well, but let's open it up to some questions now and get everybody's questions answered.
Hi, Wade. Thank you so much for the great presentation. We did receive a few questions that were sent through a chat to me. And if anyone has any other ones, please feel free to drop them in as we're going through this, and Wade will be able to address them either during this presentation or after today's presentation. Okay, let's get started with the first one here. This one's a little bit longer, so I'm going to read it slowly. How do you recommend balancing security requirements with daylighting and views in projects like schools or corporate lobbies, where we need both protection and an open, welcoming atmosphere?
One fantastic question. Seriously, I say that wholeheartedly because you are looking to incorporate, like you said, daylighting, inviting spaces, but not make it look like they're checking into prison or the evidence checkpoint station of any sort by any means whatsoever. And this image right here, I think, is a good example of that, because yes, you have the ability to custom create, custom design, because this is the U.S. Department of Transportation entry vestibule into a federal building. And the rotunda is phenomenal. It gives massive amounts of daylighting. It's inviting. You can see what's going on inside the building. You can see what's going on outside the building. There's public access, egress, ingress. And you have incorporated a couple different factors here. Yes, the daylighting, there's solar control incorporated in the actual inner layers of the glass. You have the ability to custom create, custom design, but this is also a level 8 ballistic rated vestibule. So you've incorporated the security. So this is just a kind of an image that shows you exactly what you're looking for there. So when you look at how you can balance it, the balance is really kind of what your imagination is limited to, really, by any means whatsoever. Because yeah, you can't make these massive, massive windows because the glass can be very heavy. But at the same time, we can work with you on helping create a solution that'll help protect against all of these different types of threats. This is a full blast rated curtain wall system where they wanted to allow massive amounts of daylighting. They wanted some of the office spaces, as you can see here, but they still wanted a beautiful curtain wall system that was inviting into this building, even though a lot of people just can't walk up to this building. It's a National Guard building where there are multiple checkpoints, but this is essentially done on a government facility right there located in the heart of Maryland. So if you can see here, you have the ability to custom create, custom design, but the balance factor is really what your imagination is limited to there as well. But phenomenal question there, though. Thank you for asking that one.
Cool. Okay, I think we're going to have time for two more here. So that second question here is what percentage cost premium should we budget for ballistic rated systems compared to standard glazing?
The short version I always give everybody, if I'm especially at a trade show, I give them a three word answer there. As I say, visit my booth. When it comes to the cost percentage that people are always worried about and the sticker shock, I encourage you to contact either us or other manufacturers to get a budget pricing because there's no true set percentage or price escalation when it comes to regular storefront and curtain walls to ballistic protection. There are a lot of different factors that come into there. I can tell you there's an increase, absolutely, because more material is being utilized, more glass, more interlayers, more metal. They still look and perform like a standard storefront wall or curtain wall system or door openings. But yes, there's more material utilized, therefore there is an increase. So you want to ensure to consult with your manufacturers, get a local installer involved as well and say, I need installation pricing as well on top of just material pricing as well. So contact myself, contact other manufacturers. We're all here to help. We understand that a lot of building owners are determining whether they want any type of security ready product on there purely because of budgets. And unfortunately, sometimes, especially educational facilities that are very budget constrained, they can only put in one window at the check-in desk, but I can guarantee you that one window is not protecting the entire educational facility as well. So unfortunately, there's no set percentage or criteria that is set forth to say, yes, if you go to a level one, it's a 25% increase. If you go to level two, it's a 18% increase. There are just a lot of different factors that come in when it comes to cost percentages or the premiums when it for security products. But feel free to contact me. If we have something to work off of, we can certainly look at doing budget pricing for your projects as well. But phenomenal question.
Cool. Okay. We do have a few more from the same architect here. First one, are systems to resist the new military high energy weapons being developed?
That's that's another great question as well. No, they're not, and even if they are, they're done in secrecy. They'd be top secret government, and I'm not paid enough to have any top secret government clearance like that. I can tell you though that I used to be a private military contractor, and I have seen windows and doors blown off buildings because of, tactical SWAT teams trying to breach some of these doors as well. And they learn that they can't in some cases. But no windows and doors are currently being developed to help protect against these new age modern weapons, of any sort. These are purely, if anything, you want to consider them low level protection to some of those other new energy weapons that they're looking at out there. But if I ever hear of one, I will be sure to let the entire industry know.
Okay. Are there webinars that teach how to design RF protected structures available? SCIF enclosures, can they be combined with threat protection systems?
No, there are no webinars that teach you how to design those. The manufacturers like myself in our companies can help you design those, whether it's skiff rooms, whether it's data centers. Believe it or not, even the slanted windows that you see on air traffic control centers at airports, those are typically RF shielded windows because they want to keep people from diverting planes or hear where planes are actually going of any sort. So no, there are no webinars that tell you how to design those. There are manufacturers like us that help you design those because it comes to the inner layers of the glass, it comes to how they're installed, whether they're skiff rooms or certain doors or solutions that you're going to be utilizing. So if you need help designing those, incorporating those into your projects, contact me directly. I can get you in touch with the right people within our company that can help provide expertise on that because we do have a lot of experts that have worked on projects around the world that incorporate RF shielding, STC ratings, ballistic and blast solutions for these skiffs or these embassies or where you may need those types of or those threats of protection. Absolutely.
Awesome. So the best advice for this architect, fill out that survey at the end and I'll make sure you're in contact with Wade for any of your project needs or any of those questions. Okay, last one here we have time for. Have there been any successful penetrations of data centers?
Uh, by successful penetration, do you, they may have to decipher the question, do you mean where bullets or people have stolen data out of those data centers, or like true penetration because they haven't been able to protect against those? So kind of a two-part answer here. No, there has been no penetration on a data center for with bullets or explosions of any sort because there are some buildings that use them and then also some buildings that don't use them. And then two, yes, there have been penetrations of data centers because people will just park outside the fences or post up in the building across the street and use long range detection devices that allow them to listen in or steal data of any sort. So yes, there have been breaches in some of these data centers and technology centers as well. But I can tell you they're not using bombs or bullets and they're not waiting for tornadoes or crazy individuals to break into these buildings. They're using laptops, they're using listening devices, they are using any means whatsoever outside of the key security categories that we talked about to steal data and steal technology from these buildings, from the entities, wherever they are. So, yes, there are some crazy individuals out there that are very, very smart, very talented in that manner, and they can steal data. Absolutely.
Okay, I think that is time. Wade, thank you so much for your expertise and your insight. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Wade, do you have any final things before we hop off?
I want to thank you, Acelab, for allowing us to present to everybody today. And look, I will tell everybody, look, I know we're going to go to sleep tonight. We're going to wake up tomorrow and go, wait, what did we talk about? My contact information right there is on the screen. Feel free to save it. Go to our company websites, contact us by any means whatsoever. We are here to help provide solutions. If I don't have the answers, I can easily direct you the right solutions, even if it's another manufacturer out there that you will need for your products or your projects. But thank you very, very much for attending today and look forward to working with everybody.
Bye, Wade. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks.